Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us at SQL Bits, and I hope you're having an amazing time so far. I hope you've been learning quite a lot, and I hope to add to that in some small way at least. Just to check that you're in the right session, this is going to be a non-technical session. Basically, the goal is to use my journey in tech over the last 10 years, see what it taught me, what worked well for me, and hopefully share some of that with you. It might be that you're doing some of these bits already, at which point, fantastic, well done. But I'm hoping there's maybe some bits that I can point out to you. Maybe you can think about your own journeys and use some of that information to further your progress as well. So I hope it brings you some success. So let's get started. So setting expectations. I'm not sure who we've got. We seem to have a bit of a mixed audience, but I'm hoping we've got some people who are new to tech, some people who are transferring into tech, some who are maybe in tech but not progressing as much as they'd like, and some that are maybe keen to help others. Maybe they're reaching the end of their careers and they want to start giving that knowledge back. So they're the kind of groups that I'm trying to aim at, but obviously I'll go on to scope in a minute and I'll tell you the limitations of that. But in scope is my journey in tech. What can this teach others? What skills were useful in my journey? I'll also give some examples of how those skills would be used. Out of scope is, unfortunately, I've only got 50 minutes. It's going to be cutting it fine, so it's going to be quite high level. And also, I can't provide a silver bullet. It's not going to fix everything, but I'm also approachable. So if I don't cover what you've got a really burning question, you go away, you think about it, then please reach out to me. I give some details on how to contact me, and also I'm here till Saturday as well. So, initial thoughts. I'm going to do 3 main questions. The first question is, why am I talking about the tech industry? Hopefully that'll be quite obvious, given that we're at a tech conference, but I'll still cover that. I'll then go on to explain what it is to make it. So that's my definition of making it. Yours might be quite different. And the final bit, which is where I'm going to spend the bulk of my time, is how do I make it? So that's where the content is for you, really. See what I found useful in my journey, and hopefully that will be useful to you as well. And then after that, I'll just sum up with a bit of a timeline of my journey, and you'll see where I've pulled that content from. So why the tech industry? Technology is all around us. I've grown up with it. It's accelerating at pace. And yet I still remember the days of video cassettes and tape players. So I am actually that old, believe it or not. Technology is part of our everyday lives, from our work to interacting on our social spaces and even in our learning. We have to know how to operate within it effectively to make our lives easier. It's what brings us all together, especially in things like communications nowadays. We're all communicating through instant messaging, a lot of mobiles, obviously phone calls, all of that. So it's only going to get, it's only going to go that way. But also, it's where I have most of my work experience nowadays. So just a little bit about me then. So my name's Liz Hardy. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a data platform engineer, currently at Data Masterminds. I've got over 10 years working experience in the tech industry. My previous roles have included a data analyst, database administrator, DBA team lead, and I've gone back to being a data platform engineer because I enjoy the tech side still. I've worked in a range of organizations, so small to large, low to high profile, but in industries such as healthcare, education and training, insurance, legal services, and even the aviation industry. So here we are today, it's quite apt. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to get hold of me for now, but like I say, I'm here till Saturday if you have any questions. Also, because tech is very much consuming people's lives nowadays, you can work in tech and it can take over your lives. I think it's really important to have those hobbies to reach out to, just to switch off, get that work-life balance right, and these are mine. So we've done a bit about what is the tech industry. I told you a little bit about myself and my background. Now I'm going to go on about what it is to make it. So this is very much, I've chosen this as a bit of a controversial title. It's not to say making it is, oh, look at me, look how amazing I've done. What I've actually chosen this for is sometimes in my journey it's felt like I've had to just try and survive in tech. And I completely identify with anyone new who's starting out, where you're just immersed in so much technology, and where do you start? So sometimes it feels like surviving in tech, but what I'm going to focus on is actually looking to thrive at it and what I've found useful to get me to where I am today. Hopefully that will be useful. So making it in tech, it ultimately depends on you. So what are you trying to achieve? How do you perceive your future in tech? What is it that you want to accomplish? Ultimately, you define your own making it in tech. So my definition of making it would be finding that role where I surround myself with knowledgeable co-workers. I share ideas and knowledge. We work in an efficient team together. I use my existing skills, both technical and non-technical. I meet new people. I have variety in my role, but I also get that work-life balance right. So by that definition, I could argue I've made it. But like I say, yours could be very different. It's ultimately what you want to get out of it. So as we've said then, making it is defined by you. It's what your goals are. It's when will you be happy, and establishing what your long-term achievements will be. So whether you want to be a performance tuning guru, perhaps, you want to work in big tech, you want to own your own tech company, or maybe you just want to give back to the community. Ultimately, you decide how you want to go about that. So now we've defined that, I'm going to go on to how do we make it in tech. So this is where I'm hoping this content helps you. So the best way I can think to start this is by starting with a statement. So I was once told technical skills are the most important skills to succeed in tech. Don't know how people feel about that. I have my own views. So what do you think? Now, I realize some people might not want to shout out, but in my opinion, I think, yes, technical skills are very important, without a doubt, but there are also other skills that we can bring to the table that, even if our tech skills aren't right there straight away, there are other skills that we can draw on as well. I also think as technology accelerates, we can't know everything, and technical skills have to be learned on the fly. So what else can you leverage whilst you brush up on your technical skills? What about soft skills? I apologize for the cats, there's only a few more, and that's it. I am a cat fan, I'm really sorry about that. So hopefully we all know what soft skills are. So if not, I'll just define roughly. They tend to be personality traits or competencies. They're how people approach interactions with others and how that defines the tasks that we undertake. So they tend to be non-technical skills. They tend to be traditionally not learned in the classroom. A lot of them tend to be, you may have them well ingrained within you. They may be drawn out of life and experience out in the wide world. They also have a range of names like non-technical skills, meta skills, essential skills. But although they're not traditionally taught in the classroom, that doesn't mean that there aren't things that you can do about that. Also, there is a new buzzword for these, and they're also known as power skills. So hence I put a cat in a cape, because it represents power, obviously. So why do I think we're calling them power skills nowadays? I think because businesses are starting to recognize the real importance of these. So at the end of the day, businesses are realizing that even if they have the most technical person in the world working for them, if they can't have those communications with clients, customers, if they can't understand the goals that businesses are setting and working to strive towards them, if they can't have that communication with their team, how are they going to get to that end result? Having these skills create strong working relationships, client relationships, and they can also really help your career advancement as well. Ultimately, these skills can also give you that edge over someone who is also applying for the same role. But if you can demonstrate to your prospective employer that you have all these other skills as well as the ability and the aptitude to do the technical skills, it will give you that upper hand. Now, I know I've said that they're called power skills, but I'm a bit traditionalist and I'll end up slipping back into calling them soft skills anyway, so sorry about that, but I'm going to keep using soft skills term. So from my journey, I have picked up 5 skills that I think were really useful to me. You might not agree, you might think, oh, well, mine would be completely different, but this is very much my personal opinion. So in no particular order, I'm going to go through those. The first one is being ready to learn. Next one is communication and people skills. I appreciate that's 2, but they fit nicely together. The next one is adaptability. Next one is problem solving. And a really big one, really important one, is mentoring as well. It's quite popular at the moment, just in the community in general. There's a lot of awareness around that. So I'm going to go through these now and just give you a little bit more information about each of them. So what do I mean by being ready to learn? I mean being willing to set out on a journey of continual learning to further your knowledge. At the end of the day, we've said technology accelerates at pace. We need to keep up with it. A lot of bigger businesses use the latest and greatest technology, so if we can keep up to date with that, keep our skills up to date, it makes your journey a lot easier. The good thing is there's absolutely tons of resources out there. The bad thing is you just haven't got enough hours in the day to just cover all the content, so you need to be quite selective about what you want to look at. Just to clarify, I'm not saying that everyone, that no one knows, sorry, you can never know it all, but at the end of the day, it helps to have that interest and be ready to learn. So giving you a quick example of being ready to learn, imagine you're joining a new company. You're proficient in one of the technologies that they use. However, with it being like a large e-commerce business, they use multiple technologies are used. So how else are you going to keep your skills up to date? How are you going to cope with that, other than learning your skills on the fly and being able to cope with that? So having that interest really does help. The next one I want to talk about is communication and people skills. So what I mean by communication skills is speaking, listening, presenting, even observing situations. By people skills, what I mean is how you handle communication with people. That's very important. That's definitely a skill in itself, and it really does help in any industry, but especially the tech industry. If you can nail that, then you can really help your career. So what I mean by handling communication with people skills is being able to speak at different levels, being able to translate technical terms to maybe people in the business that are less technical than you, being able to collaborate effectively in teams and work towards those goals, and achieving those hopefully with those people skills. So I'm going to give you a real life example now of where I think communication and people skills were really lacking. So imagine a slowness was reported on the system, DBA is on the case. A fix has been provided by the DBA, and it's involved a code change that's been provided to the development team. The DBA continues to monitor the system and also thinks about any further fixes in case the code change doesn't work. Home time approaches, and yet there's been no further communication. The DBA actively seeks out to find out whether the problem is fixed. He therefore discovers that the code change was applied hours ago, but no one actually told the DBA. Now, we may laugh about this, but honestly, this really does happen. I've heard of another example of it today. I've seen it happen quite a few times, but this really shouldn't happen. If you've got the good communication and people skills, that's where you can really leverage that to your advantage and you stop these things from happening. The next thing is adaptability. So what I mean by that is the ability to adjust to business and client needs quickly and effectively. It might be common that you're working on one project and then another project and then keeping the usual day job going as well. So there's a lot of context switching in tech, and that's where your time management is also really important. If you can master time management, please share your tips with me, because that's a very good skill to have as well. Nature of tech is that things are changing all the time. I mean, there's so many sessions on today that cover such a wide range of technical content, and I'm not going to say I know it all, so it just helps to kind of go and pick the things that you want to look at, but feel free to be a bit willing to try something different. Go and sit in one session and listen to something, absorb something, and go on to another and see what you can take out of that. Again, that's all still adaptability. In case you think that you can't adapt to change very easily, why not think about the last 4 years? Since the pandemic, we were all in an office environment doing 9-to-5 jobs. The working place has definitely changed since then. A lot of businesses are now adopting either a hybrid approach where you're working in the office two days a week, or some businesses are adopting completely fully remote working. So if you think you can't handle adaptability, that is an example where you actually can do that. And that's also a really good example if you wanted to leverage, to prove that you can adapt to things. If you're, say, in an interview and you want to give a good example of that, we've all had to adapt to that. We've also got to think about things like adding ourselves into video calls, for example, if we're remote working, to make sure that we're seen. And I know a lot of people aren't very comfortable with that, but the way work is going nowadays, that's only going to be more and more common. So the sooner you can get used to putting yourself on video camera and speaking to people, the better. Just an example of adaptability then. So imagine you're working with multiple clients and customers, and you have to support those. Each of them have different SLAs, so therefore priorities. You may need to log on to lots of different systems throughout the day, and that means that you have to use lots of different VPNs and credentials, potentially. You may also need to use different operating systems and be familiar with different languages. And like we've said before, you need to work on multiple projects, and each one has their own priority. So therefore, there's a lot of context switching involved. So if you can adapt to that, you're doing great. The next one is problem solving. So what do I mean by that? I mean assessing a situation, understanding the initial problem, investigating for a root cause, and ultimately putting prevention measures in place so it doesn't happen again. The prevention stuff is really important. If you can stop something happening time and time again, that's a really good skill to have. So a good way of learning in IT is breaking things and fixing them. And sometimes we have to break things deliberately to replicate an issue and find an appropriate fix for it. So to problem solve, we need to use our communication skills, our critical thinking skills, and even stay calm in a crisis. But if you can master those, again, that's a really useful set of skills to have. So example of problem solving then. So you have a user that's unable to connect to a server. You ask the user for error messages to try and help diagnose the situation. An initial attempt to fix it doesn't resolve it. So therefore, you have to go away and speak to someone else in the business, maybe an infrastructure team, to get their take on things. However, if you've got that determination to fix a problem, it actually creates you a happy user. And you'll be remembered for always trying to help out in those scenarios as well. Now, one of the really important ones is that I would certainly recommend, if you're struggling at all, is mentoring. What I mean by that is being a mentee and having a mentor. And what it is having that working relationship together, having that trust together. Ultimately, you want to share the knowledge and work together. It's not just on the mentor on this one, it's between the two of you to come up with those knowledge gaps. And what you can do is create maybe a skills matrix and look at what you know, what you don't know, and how to fill in the gaps.
From there, you can put an action plan together, and you can work on that and make sure that you have regular catch-ups with your mentor and always ask for feedback throughout them and have those continual discussions. One thing I think that's really important to stress is that you can be a mentee or a mentor at any point in your career. Don't just think that, oh, I'm new to tech, so I'm always going to be a mentee until I get up to the top, and then I'm a mentor from then on. Because in my opinion, it doesn't work like that. You can be a mentee at any stage in your career. You might then be in that situation where you're then able to teach your mentor something. So effectively, you've reversed the role and you become that mentor for that mentee. So, that's something that I don't think a lot of people think about, but it's a change of mindset, and I think that is really important. And you'll see that later on in my timeline that I'll go through with you as well. Also, things to note with mentorship is have a think about how you learn best. So things like learning styles. Some people might be very visual. Some people might learn off videos. And some people might just learn from reading. But we all learn in different ways, and that's something that you need to raise with your mentor and how it works best for you. Any questions so far? Go on then. It's a really good question. I have actually got a slide on that, but you might have to wait a little while. It's at the end of the presentation, but I will cover that. And also just to add to that, there was a fantastic session yesterday around mentoring, sponsorship, and allyship, and that was by Buck and Ree. So if you haven't been able to go and see that, I really recommend that you watch it online. It'll tell you some more detailed information around mentorship in general. It was really good. I remember you being there as well, actually. Okay, so for now, what else do you have to offer? So I would argue you've got your knowledge and experience to draw on. So what I mean by that is life teaches you a lot. So every role that you've ever been in will teach you something. What worked, what didn't work. Ultimately, it will give you those transferable skills and knowledge that then you can possess and leverage in any role, but that also works for any tech role. Just never underestimate those skills. They're so useful. So to follow on from that, I'm going to give you some insights from my tech journey. So these are, I kind of like to think they're like bits of advice, bits of knowledge, experience that I've learned over the years, and I want to share with you. So the first one is active listening. So what I mean by that is being present. So like we've said already, put yourself on video camera in any meetings, get yourself known, get yourself seen, put yourself in those meetings, even if you don't fully understand the technical things that are going on. Not only will that look good to other people, to the business, that you're interested, you're engaged in things, but it'll also be that it will get you accustomed to sitting in a meeting where you don't fully understand something, but the more you sit in there, you might be a bit nervous, but you'll just keep sitting there and you'll just kind of get a bit more confident each time. You'll get more familiar, and that will help you a lot as well. So that was particularly useful in my journey when I was a junior. I would sit in a lot of technical meetings, and they were ridiculously technical, and I had no idea what people were saying, and that's me being completely honest. But the more that I sat in them, the more I heard the same terms. I went away and I jotted things down, and I went to other people in my team who were very good at supporting me, and I'd say, I really don't understand this, what's this about? And people will spend the time and they'll sit and listen to your problems, and they'll try and help you understand them. Don't have the fear of being caught out. At the end of the day, if you're going to be asked something that you don't know the answer to, it's absolutely fine. All you can say is, do you know what? I don't know that. I don't understand it yet. I don't know, but I can go and find out for you. At the end of the day, that's just saying that I'm interested. I'll go find an answer, and I'll come back to you. And sometimes that's all that can be expected. Like I say, you can't know everything now. It's just too much. In my mind, it's too much anyway. But it also shows that you're willing to learn. So that also brings me on to business knowledge. I can personally say that I benefited from learning the business knowledge at my last employers. during the COVID period where I wasn't furloughed because of the sheer amount of business knowledge that I knew. And what I mean by business knowledge is knowing their processes, their systems, what's the impact of them being down. All this stuff isn't technical. It may relate to, technical systems, but knowing who to report to if something stops working, things like that. This data goes from this place to this place, knowing the data journey even, that's all really useful, and it's not overly technical. So if you can get a hold of that early on, do that. It's really useful. The next thing is ask lots of questions. So I know it's hard to ask those questions, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes. So feed your curiosity. Use questions to try and answer some of the gaps in knowledge, especially if you've got a really supportive team around you who can help you with that. Reach out to them. You'll find someone who will help you, and that's always been my experience. You may be fearful. You may think, what if I ask a stupid question? Well, do you know what? I've asked a ton of stupid questions. I might have just been having a really bad day, or I might have just had those gaps in knowledge that no one really realized I had, but asking those questions helped fill those gaps for me. As we've said, you don't know what you don't know, so asking questions is a great way of filling that knowledge. Also, don't underestimate the impact of having fresh eyes on things. You start getting other people in the business to start rethinking. That's a really good thing to do. As you work in a role for several years, you may find that people just stop being curious. They stop wondering why something's written a particular way. That's when you can start asking questions and prompting that. And it just might get those conversations working of, is there a better way of doing something? You'll also find that in businesses, especially like large organizations, you'll find there are things that are left well alone for fear of breaking them. So asking those questions helps others to look at how things have been written, and they might work with you to try and come up with a better solution. The other thing asking questions does is it prevents assumed knowledge. As we know, assuming knowledge is a dangerous thing. So, especially if you're doing on-call things and you're getting called out at 2 o'clock in the morning and you think you know how something works and then all of a sudden it all goes wrong, you don't want to be sat up at 2 in the morning trying to figure all that out. So just get those gaps in knowledge filled, and that's a really good way of doing it. The next thing is stating the obvious. I sometimes think this presentation that's partly what I'm trying to do. A lot of this seems obvious to me, but it's important to think that we all think differently. We really should be mindful and respectful of that. I like to think common sense really isn't that common. So, I thought that was quite an apt picture to sum that up. But what you'll find in tech sometimes is that you get people who are so far down the rabbit hole investigating something or trying to troubleshoot something, and then you go, wait a minute, have you thought about this? And they go, do you know what? I never even thought of that. I was so far down the rabbit hole there. So that's what I mean by stating the obvious. There are things that you might think up because you're very focused on the fundamentals and they're so advanced that they're not looking at the smaller things, the simpler things. So that's a really good thing to do, and don't be afraid to do that. Next thing is be honest. And what I mean by that is be honest in your learning journey. So what I'm saying here is you can't know everything. Be honest where you're at and look at what do you know already. Find out what's missing and use that as your starting point to fill in your gaps in knowledge. Not everyone nowadays is going to have 30 years worth of technology knowledge. So at the end of the day, we have to start somewhere, and that's from the fundamentals up. Next thing I've learned is learn from your failures. At the end of the day, it's human to make mistakes. It's how we learn from them that counts. If something's gone wrong, you've misjudged something, it happens. Admit it, accept it, and learn from it. What does it gain from going over it and over it of why something happened? As long as you've learned from it, you've put something in place to stop it happening again, that's all you can do. And if you learn from it, you grow as a person and you grow within your team. And it also helps you to become more proactive in future. So ultimately, turn those negatives into positives, and just remember things will improve. Now, I'm a big believer in this one. Do things that are out of your comfort zone. I'll give you an example in my timeline shortly. But what I mean is learn to push yourself. Even if you're an introvert, even if you're a bit shy, you can do little things to just take you along the way. Just dip your toe in something that pushes you that little bit. And then you'll find after a while you'll start doing bigger things. And you'll actually surprise yourself what you can achieve. At the end of the day, if you do something that you never expected to accomplish and you actually manage to accomplish it, how good does that feel? So trust me, it gets easier. Do it. And the final insight I want to share is overcoming barriers. So we all face barriers along the way. I've certainly had quite a great deal of them in my career. Sometimes I feel like I'm banging my head against a brick wall, and that might just be the way I'm thinking or getting frustrated, and it might even be frustration with myself. But barriers such as, say you haven't got a continual line manager, if it's constantly changing, you haven't got that person to look up to check in with, that's very hard to work with. Say you had an exam that you really wanted to get and you failed it. Again, we've learned that failures we learn from and we try to overcome them. It could also be things like being the only female in your team. Believe it or not, that can be a bit daunting as well. I've certainly been in that situation quite a few times. Things like having low confidence is another barrier, but as you push yourself, that will become less of an issue. Your confidence will grow. You'll also have things like language barriers, differences in culture, different time zones can also be a barrier. So if you work for a big company and you're split over multiple countries, you have to then plan for that within your workload as well, and that can be a bit of a barrier as well. So any questions so far? Nope. Okay, so I know we've covered a lot of soft skills, we've covered a lot of knowledge and experience, but what about technical skills? Or just to balance from soft skills, they're also known as hard skills as well. So technical skills, I just mean, learning different technologies, learning how to write different languages, doing coding, all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that technical skills aren't important. Yes, you're going to need them in tech. But what I'm trying to do is give that bit of hope that, okay, you might be like, do you know what, there's so much stuff to know and I'll never know it all. But everyone thinks like that. They just maybe don't say that as often as maybe they should. What I'm trying to get at is having that blend of soft skills and hard skills, so your tech skills and your non-tech skills, really helps you to think about things differently and approach things differently. So yeah, it's good to get the blend of the two if you can. So how can I go about learning the technical skills? There's plenty of online resources, things like MS Learn. There's lots of good YouTube videos, Pluralsight, all those kind of things. Certifications and training courses. I'd thoroughly recommend, even if you don't enjoy doing certifications, use the certification content to learn what you need to know. That's a really good way of going, right, what do I know, what don't I know? Find yourself a mentor, and note that I say you find your mentor. Again, that other session I recommended, we'll talk about that in more detail, but find someone that you trust and who will be able to bring your learning to the next level. Attend and volunteer at conferences. Well, I see you all here today, so that's a fantastic start. And just generally get involved in the tech community. So well done, you're all here. That's fantastic to see. So, like I say, I'm just going to go on a little bit about my story now, just so you can see where I've got this content from, really. It sums it up quite nicely. So, 2010, I completed university and went into the world of work. I developed my people skills. I was very much a mentee. 2010, I entered the tech world. So what I did, I was basically an administrator, worked in office work, that kind of thing. And and I worked at a training company. So I actually sat opposite the IT team. There was 2 of them, and they were really rushed off their feet all the time. I could see that they were trying to do the usual IT help desk support, but there was one of the IT guys who was also doing business reporting, so things like how much money they were bringing in every month, and it was just insane the amount of work they were trying to cover between them. So I actually used that as a bit of a gap, as a way of my way into tech, really. So I spoke to one of the IT guys and went, what if I tried to kind of help you on some of this? Would you be willing to teach me a little bit? And I'll take off some of maybe the grunt work from you, and you'll be able to do more advanced reporting that you have an interest in as well. Luckily, my line manager was very supportive of that as well. So it goes to show if you can identify these opportunities, use them, take them. And so from then on, I did a lot of Crystal reports writing, and I got an interest in SQL. So from there, I went and had a few roles, like working in insurance. I did a bit more SQL, data analysis roles. And I went into the legal services industry after that in 2013. This role was particularly challenging for me. I found it quite difficult. I didn't have a supportive team. I was one of 3 people, and this is where I had no constant line manager. I had no one that I could go to and feel like some of the frustrations I couldn't really get any movement on, because 6 months down the line I had a new manager, and that was really upsetting to me. So yeah, I had a team where we didn't share the knowledge, we didn't have any documentation, and that just caused a lot of barriers for me. It slowed me down in terms of my progress. I had to go along the business and find out a lot of how sort of the business knowledge worked, and there were a lot of people that didn't really want to share that information, and that is really hard to deal with. So I took it upon myself to go, do you know what, I still enjoy SQL, I love working with all this kind of stuff. So I reached out to the IT team there. I said, I really want to carry on in this. I've identified 3 certifications on a crash tech course. If I do these Microsoft certifications, will that get me a role in IT? They said, yeah, if you can get them, fantastic, we'd take you on, no problems. So I enrolled myself in that crash course. Unfortunately, it was like 3 exams in 9 days. It was a bit insane thinking about it now, and I didn't have the grounding in the SQL knowledge to really go and pass these. I mean, you're talking MCSA exams, so there was a lot of content. So I learned from that failure, and I didn't give up. What I did instead, I changed tact, and I looked for a role which I found in the aviation industry as a junior DBA. So I became very much a mentee there. I asked lots of questions. I developed my technical skills. I carried on my self-study in my spare time. 2017, I passed my DBA MCSA exam, and I just worked further within the DBA team, both as a mentee, but also mentors to juniors. I developed my technical skills, and I asked lots of questions. 2019, I got promoted to DBA team lead, and I was very much a mentee and a mentor still. I used my people skills more than ever, and my adaptability skills, because I was put in so many different meetings and had to context switch like crazy to keep up. Which leads me on to 2022. I wasn't actively looking for a role, but I got offered a role at Data Masterminds. And here I'm very much a mentee and a mentor still. I still work on my adaptability skills. I keep developing my technical skills. As we say, everything keeps changing, so I keep up to date with that, and I still ask lots of questions. This is probably my favorite part, where 2023, I stepped out of my comfort zone, and I entered the world of public speaking. This is something I never thought I would ever do. So I entered myself into New Stars of Data. I really enjoyed it, actually. I had a fantastic mentor who's sat in the audience. Thank you, Claudio.
And here I am now speaking at SQL Bits, which I've been here for 7 years running. I've never thought about speaking until now. So it just goes to show what you can achieve. I'm still very much a mentee on that as well in terms of public speaking, so we'll keep working on that one. But what I want to stress is there's several themes that run throughout my timeline, and that's share the knowledge, don't cling on to that knowledge, share it between you, you'll get further. Definitely look at the role of mentorship. Be very conscious that you can be a mentee or a mentor at any point in your career. Don't be afraid that, you might want to go from something like database admin over to analytics. Well, you might want to then be a mentee again. Even if your database skills are absolutely amazing, you've still got that new stuff to learn, and you've got those knowledge gaps, and a mentor can help you with that. So one thing I want to note is from 2016 onwards, when I became a junior DBA, I certainly developed a lot of imposter syndrome. Maybe you've all heard of it. It's amazing how if you actually ask people about imposter syndrome, everyone goes, oh yeah, I have that. And you're like, really? I never thought you had that. So you'd be surprised. So I sum it up as, why would someone hire me? I don't know anything. Why would you look to me for an answer? But you're definitely facing imposter syndrome. You'll surprise yourself how much you actually know. So imposter syndrome tends to spin out of negative self-talk, lack of confidence. One thing to note is it's completely normal. It's especially normal in this industry. Like I say, be honest in your learning journey. You don't know what you don't know. And by teaching others, you can overcome this. So you might think, oh, I'm not ready to teach that. But even teaching little tiny bits to someone, you'll just get that reassurance that you know something. And you just keep building on that time and time again. So how can all this help you? So this is where I link back to the audience. So depending on where you are in your careers, if you're new to tech, start looking at researching potential companies to join. Find that first job. Use that readiness to learn. Try buddying up or mentoring. So what I mean by buddying up is finding someone else in your company that's maybe a co-worker that can just help you understand certain bits and you can help them. But also find a mentor maybe to fill in some technical skills as well. If you find that you're in a role that's not working, give it a bit more time, try and be patient with it, but if it's really not working for you and you're not getting what you need out of it or the support you need, don't be afraid to move on. And ultimately, join the tech community. So you're all here today, which is fantastic, but I hope that you come back again next year and you keep joining these kind of events. If you're transferring into tech, find a company or a role to move into, draw on those existing skills. Definitely use active listening and learn that business knowledge, and also find a mentor to help you with those technical skills. If you're not progressing as much as you'd like, try doing self-reflection, ask for feedback within your team or from your manager. Identify any gaps in knowledge, work on those soft skills, maybe they're a weakness and you want to turn them into a strength. Start networking at events. Hopefully today you've all tried to speak to someone here that you don't know. If not, go do it. It's really good. It's a really good experience. Start teaching what you know, or even become a mentor for someone. If you're wanting to help others, say you've reached the end of your career or near enough, teach what you know, not just technical skills, but non-technical as well. Find a mentee. Be present at events and user groups. So we've got a meeting, I think, at 6 o'clock tonight for some of the user groups as well. So come along to those, find out how you can get involved. Assist and encourage others, and start speaking at events. So here we go. How can I become a mentor? Start looking out for mentees in your own team. Reach out to the tech community, like the SQL community. Start attending user groups, conferences, meetups. And it's really important to say, attend those in person. So well done for all being here in person. I genuinely believe that if you're here in person, you can speak to people. You get those opportunities that you don't get remotely. I'm all for remote working. I love remote working as well, but
things like this, when you get the opportunity to talk to people that you never get to talk to normally, that's when you want to be in person. You can also help set up a user group if you haven't got one near you, and just generally get involved. The other things that you can look into when becoming a mentor is look into learning styles, as we discussed earlier, but also things like emotional intelligence. Be aware of how that can impact a relationship between yourself and your mentor as well. So to recap then, I provide no silver bullet. Like I say, this is all very much personal, my opinions. It's all shaped from my own journey. I just hope that I'm giving you some of the tools to progress and the know-how. So a recap of the takeaways. We've got ready to learn, adaptability, people skills, problem solving, and mentoring. Takeaways in terms of knowledge and experience, your active listening, asking your questions, state the obvious, be honest in your learning journey, learn from your failures, get out of that comfort zone. The sooner you do it, the sooner you'll realize you should have done it ages ago. I certainly do. And overcome those barriers. These worked for me, so I hope you start trying some of these yourself. So if you gaps in technical skills, the first thing is asking for help. Reach out to people, see how they can help you. Collaborate with your colleagues. Start networking. You've got the ideal opportunity here. Find a mentor. Even become a mentor. So what I mean by becoming a mentor and still filling in gaps in knowledge is you might actually have your mentee ask you a really good question that you don't know the answer to. At that point, you've got to go away and find things out, so you're still learning. So we're all learning, you know. So how can this all help you? I've put some next steps for you. A few ideas, anyway. So firstly, in terms of soft skills and embracing them and working on them, I've provided a load of links and some free soft skill courses. If they're free, you might as well have a go. Not going to charge you anything. Why not? Further actions would be do a self-reflection, identify your strengths and weaknesses. You can work with others to find those out as well. Just ask your colleagues to be honest. And then create an action plan and start working through that to improve. Also, thanks to one of my colleagues in the front here, I found out about these podcasts, which are Talk Fast, Talk Smart. It's all based around communication. They're fantastic just to listen to, just to find out about communication skills, how to improve them. And the person who does that is Matt Abrahams. He's also done a book and an audio book, which I've also started listening to as well. So, like I say, you might not want to read things all the time. So if you're in the car and you just want to listen to something, pop some podcasts on. So we're all at a massive event like SQL Bits, but there's also some other events here. So these are ones coming up in 2024. I'll be presenting this again at Data Grilling as well. But there's other events you can join. There's Meetup, where you can find out a lot of user groups as well tend to post on there. Call for speakers also gives you an idea of where people are going to be speaking, and you can decide whether you want to go somewhere in Europe and attend some conferences as well. And just a shameless plug for myself, I'm part of the Leeds user group. We've been working recently with the Manchester and Newcastle group, and we're hoping to start doing some in-person events in Leeds. Even if you're not based in Leeds, which you probably aren't, but there'll be opportunities to join some of the sessions remotely. So please feel free to take these details away and come and join us as well. So thank you very much for your time today. Please leave me your feedback. There's a QR code there and a link just in case the QR code doesn't work. It's really important that we get this feedback for SQL Bits as well, so please do that. Also, contact me on LinkedIn. I'm around if you need me. So that leaves us 1 minute for questions, if there's anything that anyone wants to ask. Oh, sorry, I see what you mean. Yes, sorry. So the question was, when I was struggling and I had the difficult place that I worked, the legal services, I got a new role, but what was that? And that was where I made that progression to doing the crash tech course. But then I used that to identify that I needed to be a junior DBA and actually be physically in a role to start absorbing a lot more of the SQL knowledge and build on that. It was actually the company in the aviation industry. Sorry if I wasn't clear on that one. Yeah. Okay, we're at time. Yeah? Can I take any more questions, or is that it? Okay, I was going to say, if not, yeah, no. I mean, okay. I'll take a couple more if I can, if you're okay for time. Yeah. I actually did a course with a company called Firebrand, and they did a lot of SQL certifications. I think they're based in St. Neots, sorry. But I'm sure there's plenty of other ones that you can do around there. But my one bit of advice is make sure that that's what you want to do, because it's intensive. 9 days of just no sleep, and oh my God, it's crazy. I'll share about that if you're more interested in it. I'll come and chat to you. One more, and then I think that'll be it. Did you have another question? Yeah. So, sorry, yeah. So the question was, how do you get to speak at events? So I am aware, actually, we've got a community hub here. I think it's, as you go into the events hall, it's straight at the back. And if you go there, I think there's people that you can talk to about finding yourself a mentor for speaking. Certainly things like New Stars of Data. It's a fantastic thing to do. I would thoroughly recommend it if you're keen to start talking. I kind of got pushed into it, but I'm very glad I gave it a go. So, but no, thank you very much for your time. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope you have too. Thank you.